Hello, this is Julie D., and you're listening to the Nordonia We Need to Talk podcast network recorded in the Nordonia Hills.news studio. Today, I have with me Darayus and Andrew Thompson, and this is the Cleveland Sports Show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Today, with me, Darayus and Andrew Thompson back on the show as well. Happy New Year to you all, our first episode officially of 2019. And not only is it our first episode of 2019, it is also our 25th episode in total of the Cleveland Sports Show, dating back all the way, if you could remember, to the end of May back in 2018. So we're kicking off two special anniversaries. Today, of course, we have the first episode of 2019, and it's our 25th anniversary of the Cleveland Sports Show, when we started all the way back with Brady. Now, Andrew and I have a ton to talk about today, but before we get into a lot of the NBA stuff for today, I wanted to keep you guys updated with all of the news in the soccer world. So first, in the Premier League in England, Liverpool still hold the first seed with 54 points and have a 4-point cushion against the second place Manchester City, who have 50 points. And then in third place, it's Tottenham Hotspur with 48 points, and then Chelsea with 44 points in fourth place. So definitely a lot more competition in the Premier League than we've seen before. The point differentials are very, very tight, and I'm definitely looking forward to come May when the playoffs begin and we get to see, really who is the cream of the crop in the Premier League. Now, switching over to La Liga in Spain, Barcelona still holds the first place. However, their point differential between them and Atletico Madrid, who are in second place, is only by 3 points. Barcelona has 37 points thanks to 11 wins, 4 draws, and 2 losses, while Atletico Madrid has 9 wins, 7 draws, and 1 loss for a combined 34 points. In third place, it's Sevilla, once again with 9 wins, 5 draws, and 3 losses for 32 points. And then it is Real Madrid with 9 wins, 3 draws, and 5 losses for a combined 30 points. In Ligue 1 in France, PSG still holds a comfortable margin in first place. 13 points behind them is Lille, LOSC, with 34 points thanks to 10 wins, 4 draws, and 5 losses. Lyon is 2 points behind them with 9 wins, 5 draws, and 4 losses, and with 32 points. And then Montpellier has played 17 matches, and in those 17 matches, they have 8 wins, 6 draws, and 3 losses for a combined 30 points. So, just like the Premier League, aside from the fact that PSG is comfortably ahead, from place 2 down all the way to 20, a lot more competitive, very small point differentials. I can conclude that PSG is most likely going to win the first place in Ligue 1, just given the fact that they're one of the most successful teams. They're almost like the Warriors of Ligue 1. They're going to easily lock up that first place, and I won't be surprised if they go on to win the Ligue 1 Cup this year. In Serie A, in Italy, Juventus, similar to PSG, has a comfortable margin. They are 9 points ahead of second place Napoli, who have 44 points with 14 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. Inter Milan have 12 wins, 3 draws, and 4 losses for a combined 39 points. And then it is Lazio in fourth place with 9 wins, 5 draws, 5 losses for a total of 32 points. Juventus still has not witnessed a loss this year. They have played 19 total matches, with 17 of those matches being wins, and of course 2 of those matches obviously being draws. They have a combined 53 points, and they have only allowed 11 goals so far in their season. So not only are they getting it done offensively with Cristiano Ronaldo, their defense has been able to sustain a lot of quality and retain only 11 goals this season so far. And last but certainly not least, the Bundesliga in Germany. Borussia Dortmund have a 6-point hold over second-place Bayern Munich. They have 42 points for a combined 13 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss. Bayern Munich has also played 17 matches. They have 11 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses for a total of 36 points. And Mönchengladbach has 10 wins, 3 draws, and 4 losses for a total of 33 points. And finally, in fourth place, it is RB Leipzig with 9 wins, 4 draws, and 4 losses for a total of 31 points. So that concludes our soccer portion of the show this week. We'll definitely keep you up to date with all of that. Stay tuned for next week where we talk a lot more soccer and, of course, always keep you guys updated. And now we're going to move into the NBA. And I'm really looking forward because I have a lot, Andrew, I have a lot to talk about. But first, we always have to start with the Cavs, who had another horrendous week starting this past Saturday, where they were in Atlanta and lost to the Hawks by only 3. However, they came back to the Q for a 4-game homestand. That stand is halfway complete, and they have given up 117 points in each of those games. This is the 4th straight game that the Cavaliers have given up 110-plus points. They just look absolutely out of sync. And in all of those games, except the one against Atlanta, the Cavaliers haven't even been able to break 100 points. So they've been getting obliterated. It's been very embarrassing. I want to get your thoughts and opinions. What are you seeing from the Cavs right now? Is there anything positive at all?
Oh, there's nothing positive. Nothing. And, like, Sexton, I don't know about him, really. He's, in 30 minutes, he's scoring, 13 points. And same with Osman. Last night he got 31 minutes and only 8 points. I mean, they have to do something. I get they're tanking, but they have to do better than this.
I mean, especially the fact I did not expect them to be this terrible. I thought Kevin Love would honestly, I thought Kevin Love would man up and only take a few games off of a toe injury. Yeah. Really, I mean, come on. It shows that the Cavs obviously need him because he's the only All-Star. But speaking of All-Stars, don't forget to do your All-Star voting for the All-Star weekend in Charlotte this year. But if I'm going on Google and I'm looking up All-Stars, one for the Cavs specifically, one other player than Kevin Love that I see as an All-Star is Jordan Clarkson. I really think that he, right now, is the best player on the Cavaliers. He did very well. He does very well off the bench. He's one of the best bench scorers in the NBA, third best to be specific. He's doing very well. His past 2 games haven't been great at the Q. He only had 11 points against the Miami Heat in 25 minutes, and then he only had 12 points in 19 minutes. But other than that, he's giving you 20 plus points a game, and I just love to see his energy, his athleticism, and his ability to shoot the ball. He's a gifted scorer. Yeah. So that's one player other than Kevin Love that I see as an All-Star this year for the Cavs. But just to get back on their point, they just got embarrassed. There's no other way to put this. And they play the Pelicans tonight. Anthony Davis is coming to town, so I see no sign of them winning that game whatsoever.
No one can guard AD.
They play the Pace. They conclude their 4-game homestand against the Indiana Pacers, which is going to be another loss, especially the fact that the Pacers are going to come out with a vengeance. I don't know if you remember that game in Indianapolis where Larry Nance Jr. made that game-winning putback. Yeah. So the Pacers are obviously going to come in with a vengeance, and they're going to easily win that game. And then the Cavaliers begin a 6-game West Coast road trip, all against tough teams: the Pelicans, the Rockets. They go to Los Angeles to face the Lakers. Then they go to play the Trailblazers in Portland. They head to Utah to take on the Jazz, and they finally play the Nuggets before coming back home. The upcoming schedule for the Cavs is extremely difficult. And what's your thought on this schedule? I mean, do you think there are any games that they can win? I obviously don't see any.
I don't think there's any games we can win. Especially tonight, when we're playing against the Pelicans. I know the Pelicans aren't too good right now, but we have no one who can guard Anthony Davis.
I mean, the Jazz and the Heat, they aren't that too good either, and they've obliterated the Cavs at home. I don't know if you've been keeping up with me. I know Patrick McCaw, the former Golden State Warrior. So Patrick McCaw is officially a member of the Cavaliers. He's played 2 games with them so far, and these are 2 games I think he would love to forget. This past Wednesday against the Heat, he played 18 minutes and scored a grand total of 2 points. He was 1 of 2 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3-point range, 1 assist, 1 steal. And then he didn't follow that up against the Jazz. He played 18 minutes again, and a grand total this time, not 2, but 3 points. He 1 of 5 from the field. He attempted 1 3-pointer and made it, obviously, to get his 3 points. 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Hopefully he's just finding his rhythm right now in the Cavaliers. I hope he has that breakout game soon. He hasn't put up terrific stats with the Warriors either. He's more of just a reserve for the Warriors. The past 2 seasons with Golden State, he averaged about 4 points. So he's not a Jordan Clarkson. He's not a Rodney Hood type player. He's more of a reserve. But I expected a little more from this. He has that championship caliber mentality, and I think that's why the Cavaliers really wanted him, because he knows how to win in Golden State. He's had that experience, and just these past 2 games, the fact that they've been obliterated is just very embarrassing. And I really hope that they can turn it around. I don't think they will at all, especially given their tough schedule. But
I'm sorry. I really think it's the fact that he doesn't want to be on the Cavs, because if you see pictures of him, like the day he first came to the Cavs gym, he didn't look happy at all. He doesn't want to be on the Cavs. He wants to be with the Warriors. He wants to be on a winning team.
And I don't think anyone would want to be on the Cavs right now. I think guys like Jay Crowder and Kyle Korver who are play for the Jazz now, were very, very happy. Given the fact that they're in much better situations now, they actually might be able to play in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Cavaliers, who, let's be honest, their season's over. They're just going to tank the rest of the season. I really see no positivity for the Cavs whatsoever. So, that's my wrap-up on the Cavs. We already discussed their upcoming games, so I don't think we need to dwell on those anymore. But one thing that I do want to talk about, this past Thursday, the NBA on TNT had 2 phenomenal games. The second one we're going to talk about a little bit later. But first, Kawhi Leonard made his debut in San Antonio as a member of a new franchise. The Toronto Raptors went to San Antonio and got obliterated, to say the least. They were down by 19 in the first quarter by a score of 19-38. They outscored the Raptors by 3 in the second quarter, as well as the fourth quarter. But, in the third quarter, they were outscored by 5. And the Spurs eventually won it 125-107. So, the one thing I did like that the Spurs did, I don't know if you saw, but they did a tribute video to Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, who was also another member of the Spurs, which I thought was very professional of them, just to thank you. But the fact that the Spurs fans booed Kawhi Leonard, I was interested to get your opinion on this. Should the Spurs fans have booed them, or should they have applauded him? What's your opinion on that?
I see this kind of as like a LeBron situation. Kawhi did win them a championship, so I feel like they got in his head during the game, and that's kind of why they lost. But he did win them a championship. They shouldn't have booed him. They should have applauded him.
And I'm not saying give a howling cheer or anything. You don't have to go over the top. But I think we need to recognize that without him, the Spurs probably wouldn't be where they were. I don't know if you remember that in 2017, the Western Conference Finals, in Game 1 when they were up by 25, the Spurs at Oracle Arena. Most of that was thanks to Kawhi Leonard, and we saw when he went down just how vulnerable the Spurs were. So I definitely don't think that it's fair that he got booed. Now you can say the way he handled his situation getting out of San Antonio, maybe that was the reason fans booed him. But for what he did on the court and what he represented as a Spur, I don't think he should have been booed for that. They obviously applauded Danny Green because he had no involvement in any of this Kawhi Leonard stuff, and he was just a part of that trade. In that game, however, Danny Green had a donut that refers to 0 points. He was 0 of 7 from the field, 0 of 6 from three-point range, all in 26 minutes. Very disappointing performance for Danny Green. But Kawhi was able to shake off the booze. In 33 minutes, he put up 21 points, 8 of 13 from the field. He was 0 of 2 from three-point range, though, however. So a little under the weather from Kawhi, but I think we can expect that given the fact, it was a much different away game for him than it really would be for any other game. So, I can give, I think I can give him leniency for that one. But I want to talk about a much more important game. It was the game right after that. The Houston Rockets went to Oracle Arena in Oakland to take on the Warriors. And, I was thinking before this game started, that's going to be an easy win for the Warriors because I think that, in November, it was November 15th that the Warriors went to Houston. And they got blown out by 21 points by the Rockets. So I thought Golden State would have a vengeance. This is the team they beat in the Western Conference Finals. This is a team that this is the same Rockets team that I didn't expect to give them as much as a challenge this year. But if you look at that final score, it really said everything. James Harden was absolutely phenomenal. This is his fifth straight 40-plus. This is his fourth straight game with 40-plus points. More specifically, in 44 minutes, he was able to put up 44 points, 13 of 32 from the field. He had 10 total three-pointers, a lot of those coming from that step-back three that he's so famous for. He had 10 rebounds and 15 assists. So he had a triple-double. Basically carried the Rockets in that game. Clint Capella, I thought, played well alongside James Harden, but it was really James Harden who got it done, and it was just a phenomenal game. So I was wondering, do you think that this was a bigger win for the Rockets, or do you think it was a bigger loss for the Warriors?
I think it was a bigger loss for the Warriors. They should have won this game, all the All-Stars they have. And plus, they had when you saw when James Harden he made the last shot of the game
right,
winner, right?
Yeah.
They had two guys in his face. He shouldn't have made that. I mean, you had Draymond Green. He won Defensive Player of the Year, and Clay on his side too. Both of those guys are over 6'5" feet. Or they should be able to get in his face.
And I do agree with you that the fact this was a bigger loss for the Warriors because they were jacking up a lot of shots, especially as the game was winding down. Generally when they were up 2, remember when Curry made that shot? Mm-hmm. That was an obvious out of bounds by Kevin Durant. I don't know if you saw that. He was a few feet away from the inbound slide. He was at the part where it says Golden State Warriors on the baseline, and he saved it out of bounds. And you have a baseline referee, so I don't understand how the baseline referee cannot see that. So that was a huge problem. And there was one question on ESPN that I read that said, did Harden's three-point shot make up for that out-of-bounds call that the referee didn't make? Absolutely not. The referee still has to make that call. And if James Harden doesn't make that shot, then we're, penalizing that referee a lot more than we did. So I definitely think that's a huge mistake that the NBA probably should look into, especially the fact that the referee is right there, but he doesn't see it at all. To get back on the actual game, it was a bigger loss for the Warriors because when they had the ball and they were, up 2, they were jacking up shots. You would think that, they'd milk the clock a little bit, use as much of the shot clock as they had, and then go. But the problem is Kevin Durant, they were taking shots, well before the shot clock was about to expire. And I was a little bit confused when I was watching the game, thinking, why would you take those shots? And it eventually paid. They eventually had paid because, James Harden, with the offensive superstar that he is, hit that clutch 3 in overtime and basically ended the game. So those were my overall thoughts on the game. The Houston Rockets came back from a 20-point deficit. By the way, I thought that game was over at halftime. The Rockets had a sensational third quarter. They outscored the Warriors 39-28. They put up 39 points in the third quarter. They just had a sensational performance. Even though this was a great win for the Rockets, I would have to agree with you that this was a bigger loss for the Warriors. And moving on, one more NBA team that I'd like to talk about. I haven't mentioned them in a while. The Boston Celtics, who started a 4-game homestand this past Wednesday. And unlike the Cavs, the Celtics actually are winning their home games. This past Wednesday, they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 115-102. Gordon Hayward had his best game of the season. In fact, his 2 best games of the season have both been against the Timberwolves. December 1st in Minnesota, he put up 30 points. And this past Wednesday, he had his best game of the season, putting up 35 points against the Wolves. And then this past Friday, the Celtics destroyed Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavericks and Luka Doncic as well by 114-93 by the final score. I don't know if you saw that game, but one thing that I really liked about the Celtics fans is that they cheered on the great NBA legend of Dirk Nowitzki. When it was like 1.1 seconds left on the clock, Dirk was having a little fun and just shot it up. I really wanted him to, make one of those shots. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But, just the overall fact that the Celtics fans appreciated him and appreciate greatness, it was really one reason that I support their fan base and, support their team is because they have knowledgeable fans about the game of basketball. However, bad news for the Celtics. Kyrie Irving missed his second straight game with an eye injury on New Year's Eve. The Celtics played the Spurs in San Antonio, losing by 9. But the news was a lot worse. Kyrie Irving scratched his cornea, the cornea part of his eye. Don't forget, this is a guy who in the season has been averaging about 23 points for them. The fact that they've been able to win without him, though, I don't think that's going to be able to continue. I think they do need Kyrie Irving, and I've been hearing, should Kyrie Irving leave the Celtics? Absolutely not. He's an offensive superstar that they need, but on the other hand, he's ball dominant, and the Celtics aren't able to thrive with one guy being ball dominant. So I was just wondering, what is your analysis of the Celtics so far? And without Kyrie, who do you think has to step up for the Celtics?
Definitely Jaylen Brown and Tatum. When they were playing the Mavericks, Jaylen Brown got 21 points, Tatum got 18 points. Now you were saying that if Kyrie shouldn't leave, I think that they should trade him. I remember last time I was here, I was like, they shouldn't trade him. But now I think they should. They have these young players scoring over 15 points. Maybe they can trade him, get a better starter, or maybe not a better starter, but someone who doesn't have the ball as much as Kyrie, or maybe a better bench player.
See, the problem I think though is, we know Steph Curry and the Warriors. So when Kevin Durant came to Golden State, Stephen Curry had to sacrifice, a lot of the ball handling, and they won 2 championships in a row when Kevin Durant's there. So I think what Kyrie can do is he can, emulate what Stephen Curry did, maybe not be as ball dominant. And we've seen Curry still had 2 fantastic seasons so far. So I think if Kyrie Irving's able to do that same thing, then the Celtics can definitely be a lot more successful. You don't have to do the shaking and baking and the ball handling as much, but it's eventually going to take its toll. The sacrifices are going to be worth it because you're going to see a lot more W's on your calendar, a lot more wins in your schedule. So I think if Kyrie Irving can emulate what Stephen Curry has done with the Warriors, then I really give the Celtics a chance to make the NBA Finals, and I think they'll be solidified once again as the team of the East. Because right now, even with those 2 wins, you still have to go through Toronto, you still have to go through Philadelphia, and Milwaukee and Indiana aren't sleepers either. They're coming for that crown of the East. So I definitely think that if, like I said, Kyrie Irving, maybe you don't have to do a lot, not as much ball handling, but eventually it'll pay off if you guys get wins. 2 other players that I think you mentioned, Brown and Tatum. 2 other players. Terry Rozier, Scary Terry, I think. He only had 8 points last night, but in the win against the Timberwolves, he had 16 points, 6 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from three-point range. If you watched the playoffs last year, he was absolutely sensational. He really proved that he can be a starting point guard in this league. I definitely think the Celtics need him. to be successful. And Al Horford as well, the veteran player that he is, 10 points last night. He's not going to give you, he's not going to give you a 40-point game. But his presence, on the defensive end with the rebounding and his ability to shoot the three makes him one of the most versatile centers in the entire league. And I definitely think the Celtics are going to need that come playoff time. And he himself as well, was one of the main carriers for the Celtics in the playoffs last season. But before I move on to just discuss the standings for the NBA for a little bit here, I was wondering this last night, who would you want to have on your team as a backup point guard? Would you want Jordan Clarkson or would you want Terry Rozier? I was going to get your opinion on that first.
Probably Terry Rozier. I know Jordan Clarkson, he's a great player. He can shoot, but Terry Rozier, I think he has a better future than Jordan Clarkson. He's able to dunk, he's able to shoot. And you see how he did in the playoffs. He was amazing.
Everything you make absolutely makes sense. And I bet you a lot of people think, it's obviously Terry Rozier. The choice was clear. I'm going to be 100% honest with you right now. I think Jordan Clarkson this year has proved to me that he is an all-star caliber player who, he's obviously not, the best point guard in the league or anything. No. But, the way he's been playing off the bench compared to Terry Rozier, his scoring output is a lot more consistent than Terry Rozier. I think if Jordan Clarkson were on the Celtics, I really think it would be a great fit for him. Now, I'm taking this way out of perspective because, the Cavs obviously aren't the Celtics. But I just think in terms of this season, I really would take Jordan Clarkson because he has proved to me that he is consistent. I know he hasn't been great his last two games, but he's proven that he's been consistent. He's a top bench scorer in the league. He's always been a top bench scorer in the league. So, this isn't like this is a surprise for him. This is just the best season he's having off the bench. So this year, I would take Jordan Clarkson over Terry Rozier. So I'd have to disagree with you on that. But finally, last NBA thing I want to talk about here. Just list off the top teams.
So I want to talk a little about the All-Star teams, like Luka Doncic and James Harden, Paul George. So do you really think that it's fair for Luka Doncic to be an All-Star? Saying he's a rookie.
No, not this year. I'm not going to classify him as an All-Star this year. He's definitely going to be an All-Star if he keeps playing like this. But I think, Jason Tatum had a phenomenal season last year, and he wasn't an All-Star. So LeBron had a phenomenal rookie season, wasn't an All-Star. So I think, just that first season, if you get Rookie of the Year, that's great. Next season, I think you should emulate being more of an All-Star, most likely.
Mm-hmm. How about Derrick Rose? He's playing from the bench, and he's still able to be an All-Star right now. And I've heard some people say it's not very fair for him to get like the third most votes in the Western Conference. I think that it's perfectly fine for him to be an All-Star because seeing how he came up, he was the youngest MVP. He got injured. He was okay for a couple of seasons, and now he's back and he's playing like an All-Star.
Yeah, I mean this is a great revival story. Derrick Rose. The fact that he dealt with all of those injuries, the fact that he struggled to really find wins. When he was on the Bulls, when he was on the Knicks, the Cavs, it was tough. And remember, he had that 50-point game very early in the season. So this has been a great revival story for Derrick Rose. I've always been rooting for him. He's been very inspirational to a lot of people. He's really shown that, it doesn't matter, where you come from or your background, just it matters what you do and the effort you put in on the court. That really matters. And look, I never expected him to have a game over 40 points. Yeah. And look, he had a 50-point outing early in the season. I mean, and you saw the emotion that he had after that game. It's been a great year for Derrick Rose, and I would definitely consider him an All-Star this year.
Like, especially all the votes he's getting, he said that he doesn't have to represent himself. He's just playing on the court. Like, you see most players, they have an Instagram, they have about 1 million followers, and they're kind of putting themselves out there a lot to get, like, All-Star votes. Derrick Rose doesn't have that. He's just playing on the court, doing his thing.
Yeah, he's all about hoops in the end. He wants to. He plays in the NBA for a reason. That's not to get 1 million followers on Instagram. Yeah, that's to play basketball. And I think that the Timberwolves themselves aren't doing well at all. They're 17-21. in the Western Conference in 13th place, so they're not playing well. But again, the Western Conference is so tight this year. If the Timberwolves, can go on a winning streak, they're definitely back in the conversation. That's my analysis on Derrick Rose so far this season. And finally, last NBA stat for this episode. The top teams of the Eastern Conference, we'll go with the first 5, and it's really all the teams that we've been talking about who can potentially win the East this year. The Bucks are in first place with in 26-10, Raptors in second, 28-12, the Pacers 25-12. In third place, and the 76ers are 25-14. They've won 2 in a row. Jimmy Butler had a disrespectful, is what it says on ESPN, had a disrespectful talk with 76ers coach Brett Brown. Quick question, are you nervous about what this may bring in the future for the 76ers? Are you concerned at all with this? Because this did happen in Minnesota, and look what happened with them. So I'm a little nervous that, he's only played with the Sixers for a couple of months, and this is already happening. So what's your take on that?
I think it's really because he's kind of selfish. I think he wants the ball in his hands. He wants to shoot it. He wants to be the best that he can be, and I don't really think he thinks about the other players and what they need to. I think he just wants to be at the top player. He wants to be an all-star. He wants to be the MVP. He's just thinking about himself.
And I think we've established Jimmy Butler as a great player. That's why we were so excited when he went to the 76ers. I think now is he wanted, the reason he left Minnesota is because he was complaining about, the lack of energy, the lack of passion that his teammates had. And he actually said that his teammates were, not obviously not quote for quote I'm saying here, but what he basically said is that his teammates wanted it more for themselves. They weren't really for the team. So I really couldn't understand why he'd be selfish for himself, because he wants all of his team to do well. So maybe they just had an argument. We all argue. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they can just put all that aside. They've won 2 in a row, so hopefully they can keep that streak up. But finally in 5th place, it's the Celtics, who are 23 and 15. They did win. Of course they won. They've won 2 in a row against the Timberwolves and then the Mavericks last night. In the Western Conference, the Nuggets are still surprising. They're still in first place, 25-11, up to date. The Thunder are 24. As of last night, they were 24-13. The Warriors are 25-14. Rockets, after that horrendous start to the season, they're picking up the pace. They are 22-15. They've won 6 in a row. All of that's been thanks to James Harden without Chris Paul. And then the Trailblazers, as of last night, were 22-16. They won 2 in a row. So the West is a lot more competitive. The Lakers are slipping a bit without LeBron. It's obviously showing. They're 21-18 now, so they're only 3 games above 500. So a little bit worrisome for the Lakers. I hope LeBron can get back as soon as possible. This is a little bit strange that he's actually been injured for this long, because we've never known LeBron to have season-ending injuries or anything like that. But before we move on to our final segment of the show today, anything that you want to talk about specifically with NBA, or anything that you want to mention?
The Hornets. I think they're doing a lot better than last year. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs this year. I think they'll get into like the top 6. I think so. And Kemba Walker, he's really stepping it up. In the beginning of the season, he was getting like 40 points per game.
He's an MVP candidate, I think.
Yeah, is he?
I mean, that's what a lot of people think, because the breakout season is having. But go on. I didn't let you finish. I'm sorry.
And we see like people like Malik Monk. I think he's going to develop into a very solid player. And Jeremy Lamb, same with him too.
Yeah, what I like about the Hornets is that they don't have so many all-star caliber players, but they have guys they have a cohesive unit of guys like Michael Kidd-Hillcrest, Jeremy Lamb, Kemba Walker. I really like Malik Monk and what he brings to the table. So they have a lot of guys who may not look great individually, but as a team, they're obviously showing that they can work as one cohesive unit. And I definitely think that they have a huge chance, especially the fact that the East isn't super competitive except the top 5 teams, really. The Hornets definitely have a chance to make the playoffs this year. Now that was all our talk for the NBA. Like I said, we did have a lot to talk about, but we are not done. We have we're going to give our final wrap-up on the Cleveland Browns this week. Unfortunately, the Browns were not able to get the win in Baltimore this past Sunday. They lost to the Ravens. However, it was only by 2 points. This puts the final standings for the Browns. They finished the season 7-8-1. They were 5-2-1 at home, and that they were 2-6 on the road. Now, a lot of NFL fans who are used to quality teams would say, 7-8-1. That's a pretty terrible record, honestly. But I will say this one thing: it's not 0-16. It's not winless Browns anymore. I definitely see this as a great season for the Browns, a huge accomplishment. It gives us really a lot to look forward to for the Browns. The fact that the way they played at home, the way they did so well. It was on the road that they couldn't really get it done. 6 of their 8 losses, 8 of their road games, in all those 8, they lost 6 of them, only won 2 of them. So if it was anything to look at for the Browns, it was, I would say, how do you improve when you're not in Cleveland and when you're on the road? But Andrew, what is your final analysis on the season of the Browns so far, and what are you looking forward to for their future?
I honestly can't wait till next year. I think that if we started Baker in the first few games, we would be in the playoffs right now. We would have a spot in the playoffs. We would have been better than the Steelers, better than the Ravens. And if we can get more a better lineup next year, I think that we can definitely make it far in the playoffs. And when we played the Ravens, there is only 2 guys in the NFL right now that have gotten over 300 yards. So do you think Baker Mayfield could be rookie of the year?
I mean, definitely, he's such a huge prospect coming in for the Browns season. The fact that they were able to finish 7-8-1 and not, 1-15 or 0-16. I definitely think, the way that franchise really turned around and, the future that's ahead of him, I would definitely consider him as a rookie of the year candidate this year in the NFL.
Especially since he made the NFL rookie most touchdowns. He beat Peyton Manning. He beat Russell Westbrook, who are both – not Russell Westbrook, Russell Wilson.
I was going to say.
Yeah, who are both very great quarterbacks. And I think next year he could be a possible MVP candidate.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, a lot to look forward in the future for the Browns. And last but certainly not least, we're going to get into the I forgot to mention my sports fact of the day for you, so I'll do that at the end. Before I get to that, though, I want to talk about with you, Andrew, the playoffs for the NFL. Unfortunately, the Browns not in it, but we still have some games coming up here. Today, the Indianapolis Colts are in Houston to face the Texans in the wild card round. That's one of the 4 wild card round matchups. Another one is the Seahawks taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And then the defending champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, are taking on the Chicago Bears. So, Andrew, what's your predictions? What are your opinions on these wild card matchups?
I think the Ravens. I think they're gonna get far in the playoffs. We saw a few years ago with San Francisco, Colin Kaepernick, he got really high. I think Colin Kaepernick and Lamar Jackson are very, very similar players, their game. And I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to get really high, and they're going to make it far in the playoffs.
Do you think that the defending champions, the Eagles, will be able to get past the Chicago Bears?
No. Bears' defense is too strong. I don't think they can beat them.
So, therefore, you really don't think the Eagles' chances of back-to-back Super Bowl championships, I think it's very small.
Slim, yeah.
What's your predictions for Indianapolis and Houston today?
Honestly, I'm not sure about that game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think this game will depend on defense, whose defense is better.
And last but certainly not least, Seattle Seahawks and Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys, who've had some porous seasons in the past, but have made the playoffs now. What's your prediction? Them taking on the Seahawks in Dallas?
I think the Seattle Seahawks, I think they're going to win. I think Dak Prescott, he's going to choke, and same with all the other Cowboys. And I think the Seahawks will pull through.
So definitely not a yee-haw, you would say, today for the Cowboys. So that's going to do it for NFL portion of the show. Last but certainly not least, I have my sports fact of the day. And today is January 5th. On this day, January 5th in 1964, the San Diego Chargers, they defeated the Boston Patriots, is what they were known as now, not New England, but the Boston Patriots. They defeated them 51-10 at the Balboa Stadium in San Diego, led by quarterbacks Tobin Rote and John Haddle and fullback Keith Lincoln. The Chargers amassed 610 yards on offense. Lincoln scored 2 touchdowns. He gained 206 yards on 13 rushing attempts, and he caught 7 passes for another 123 yards. He even threw a pass for 20 yards to add an astonishing total of 349 yards from scrimmage. So, a lot of NFL history that we've been talking about, a lot of NFL stuff we've been talking about today, and definitely another really interesting fact. Stay tuned for our next fact of the week next week. We'll keep you updated with that. So that concludes our show for today. Andrew, thank you very much for being here. It's always great to talk with you about all of these sports topics. Really can't wait for next week's show. We have a lot to talk about. If you haven't seen my Twitter page in a while, please check that out. I've posted a lot more stuff, especially my stuff with Andrew. If you haven't been on NordoniaHills.news lately, look that up as well. We have some students doing some amazing work on that website, and we will be back with you for another podcast next weekend. So that concludes our first show for 2019. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you guys very much for listening.